Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke, so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. Still need to work on getting like a little number pad or something so that I can just smoothly do these transitions without having to like sneak cheat, look out to the side to see what I'm doing. Anyway, hello and Happy New Year. So far in the sandbox, we have Looney Tunes, Soul Life, Human Being, Schmigly, and Yazook. I think I said all of those right. But welcome. First live stream of the new year, and it's only been a few days, but it feels like a year has already gone by. There's been so much in the news in just a few days. And I was hoping, with the surfs still out and whatnot, that I could, maybe get a little bit more traffic going here. But of course, Vosh is still on because when he starts streaming, it's usually like 10 to 15,000 hours long. Although I do find it interesting, TYT is now streaming on YouTube, and Vosh does much better on YouTube than TYT. Wonder why that could be. Anyway, so nice to see all of you. I hope you had a fantastic New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and day after New Year's. I don't know why, but on my phone calendar, it actually does list that. January 2nd, the day after New Year's. It seems like a very redundant thing to have in the calendar, but it is there, and it always throws me off when I see that. Let's see. Yeah, Vosh can go off on his fashion stuff and whatnot, so I tend not to watch him live. I click on the live stream, go back to it later so I can just skip to the politics and skip over all the other stuff that he kind of does for filler. Anyway, yeah. But the only reason why I care is I want to steal part of his audience. I want to poach in on that. I feel like there could be a lot of potential crossover, and so I want to get in on that. Start poaching from the other lefties. Anyway, I have some interesting topics to go over today. There's updates on Gaza, of course, and stuff about, Canada, inflation, CEOs making ridiculous amounts of money. We have police acting poorly as opposed to, I don't know, with them acting well. Earthquake in Japan, hitting on one of my special interest topics of natural disasters and stuff. I always find this stuff fascinating and horrific at the same time, just given the level of power nature has. It really is. Basically, when I was a little kid, the thought of tornadoes terrified me, just terrified me. And I had to, go talk to my parents because I was so upset, oh no, there's we're in Tornado Alley and I'm so scared and stuff. And so I think at the time, as a way to kind of compensate for that fear, was I started to learn everything I could about them, natural disasters in general, things that are completely out of your control. And so then that's when I started to really get into physical geography and things of that sort, to start, being less afraid, even though I know if I get hit by a tornado, it's luck. It's luck. Same with most natural disasters. It's a lot of luck. Timing and where you are and all that sort of stuff. But I do find it fascinating, and it is important to go over, and there's lots of things involved with it. Also, let's see what I have on the docket. There has been so much news. Oh yeah, Dave Chappelle. And the right thinks we can cancel people. My God. But there's been so much news. I'm like, do I wait until Friday before I do my next live stream? Or do I do a live stream on Thursday to kind of get all caught up with everything that I have on the go? Because between now and Friday, there's bound to be more interesting news I want to cover. So let's check over in the sandbox. 6 viewers, 6 likes. Okay, I'm liking that ratio. We can, oh, I see 10 viewers now. Can we get that up? Let's see, I have to actually like click over onto the other screen, I think. 10. It doesn't refresh on that screen, so it shows 10 and 1. Let's see. I wonder if Louise of Matriarch was caught up in the earthquake, says Midi Doctors. I don't know. Yes, Shamigli. There was also the air crash that just compounded everything over there, which, you know, there's the earthquake, the tsunami, and the air crash. Fortunately, though, the tsunami was not a big tsunami. It didn't, as far as I know, it didn't cost any lives. So that's a good thing about that. I always get so distracted by the chat that I know I just should start, you know, talking about this. Looney Tunes 9000, I wouldn't do Thursday, Sandy, because Thursdays are very busy. I know. But I think I just want to get caught up. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how much I get through. And in order for me to get through this, I need to stop yammering about stuff. Also, I've tried to fix the audio settings, so please yell at me in chat if the video audio of things that I play, videos I play, is super loud compared to what you're hearing me speak at. I've tried to adjust that. Hopefully it works. We'll find out in just some moments. Yes, my dogs are goth. I hope your brother is okay over in Japan. Anyway, let's get to the news. As always, I'm going to be talking about what's happening over at Gaza, and again, I try to stay away from the most horrific elements of it. There's plenty of that if you want to see it online, on Twitter, on Instagram. But there's so many aspects that are important about it that, you know, no one channel, like unless you actually like dedicate your channel to what's happening over there, you're never going to cover it all. So it's important to have the different channels covering different aspects of it. That said, let's get into it. So Mehdi Hassan, if you don't follow him on the Hostile Fart Sauna, I really recommend you do. His coverage of what's been happening over there is fantastic, and he needs all the support in the world, especially after what MSNBC did to him, you know, getting rid of his show and everything, because he's outspoken about what's happening there. And we need more media personalities doing the same. So this is from December 29th, so a few days old. It's like from last year. And he tweets out, "I challenge you to read this statement from the White House today, but change the words Russia, Ukraine, and Putin to Israel, Gaza, and Netanyahu. Go on, do it, see for yourself." Okay, I accept your challenge. Let's do it, and I will try to instantly change it. Overnight. So, statement from President Joe Biden on, I guess this would be, what did he want? Is it, do it for yourself? Okay. Russia, Ukraine, Putin, Israel, Gaza, and Netanyahu. Okay, I think I got this. So, statement from President Joe Biden on Israel's aerial assault on Gaza. Overnight, Israel launched its largest aerial assault on Gaza since this war began. The massive bombardment used drones and missiles, including missiles with hypersonic capability, to strike cities and civilian infrastructure all across Gaza. Strikes reportedly hit a maternity hospital, a shopping mall, and residence areas, killing innocent people and injuring dozens more. It is a stark reminder to the world that after nearly 2 years of this devastating war, Netanyahu's objective remains unchanged. He seeks to obliterate Gaza and subjugate its people. He must be stopped. Well, when you read it like that. So, of course, Joe Biden is talking about the assault Russia did on Ukraine. There has been some recent flare-ups there that have been quite tragic. And of course, Joe Biden is quick to make a statement on what's happening there in support of Ukraine. But the language never seems to translate when it comes to Israel and Gaza and what's happening there. Because, yeah, where's the statements from Joe Biden about the, maternity hospitals and all the hospitals and the shopping malls and the residential areas of Gaza being obliterated by the IDF, by the Israeli government? Where are those statements? So quick to say this, but, when it comes to what's happening with Israel, not so quick. Still very quiet, actually. Not saying much at all. In fact, he's going around his own government to send them even more weapons. I don't have that in my docket, but I think the Majority Report covered it today, where it's basically he's not following proper procedure to send more weapons over to Israel because they need it? The bombardment they're doing hasn't been bad enough that they need more weapons? Like, I don't understand why any money, any weapons is going to Israel right now when we can see what they're doing with it and the absolute horror and destruction that's been happening. And of course, he makes this statement and people purposely misinterpret what he was saying. So Mehdi makes this, just switch around the language and stuff. And right away, people are taking it in bad faith. So this one person says, look, you can criticize Israel, Netanyahu, the IDF strategy, but pretending that Hamas is the same as Ukraine, when a report came out today that Hamas committed mass stuff, mutilation and torture, and they said they will do it again and again, is just willfully fucking stupid, Mehdi. So he had to clarify. I didn't say Hamas was Ukraine. I explicitly said Gaza is Ukraine in terms of the undeniable aerial bombardment of civilian targets. Funny how you won't engage in that, and sad that you conflate all of Gaza, 8,000 dead Palestinian kids, with Hamas, which is Fox-style racism. Yeah, like, people take it in such bad faith. What we try to do when we compare the two situations, and people hear what they want to hear to justify their own bigotry. They hear what they want to hear to make Israel not seem like the horrific monsters they're being right now when it comes to what they're doing to the civilians in Gaza. People just want confirmation bias. They don't want to be challenged on their beliefs. Because if they get challenged on their beliefs and they actually have to admit what Israel is doing to Gaza, like look at it objectively, there's no way you can support the actions Israel is taking. None. It's now over 22,000 people dead in Gaza. You're looking at almost half of them being children. The horrors that are coming out of there about what children have to endure and everything, none of that is justifiable. And yet you still have people saying, well, Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. And it's like, what Hamas did was so long ago compared to what everything Israel has been doing. These are, again, two separate things. You can condemn Hamas for what they did, and you can condemn Israel for what they are doing. Let's see. Oh, and Mehdi continues by saying, oh, and I know a lot of U.S. liberals and pundits only check in on the Middle East when Israel is under fire, but the conflict didn't start on October 7th. The Palestinian territories have been occupied since 1967, Ukraine since 2014, and Gaza has been under siege since 2007. And even more from Mehdi Hassan. Again, great coverage. He's always on point with all of his stuff. The naked racism on display here is stunning. Anti-Palestinian racism and demonization and support for ethnic cleansing has been normalized in our political and media discourse. Huh. Wonder what he's talking about. So Nikki Haley says starving Palestinians should go to pro-Hamas countries, and if they won't accept them, it's because they don't know which refugees are terrorists. Again, folks in the sandbox, let me know if the audio is, like, again, very loud, the video audio, compared to my speaking voice. I think I've adjusted it, but just let me know.
Where should the Palestinians go?
Well, they should be going through the Rafah Gate and Egypt take them. But I've always said that, what you should have is they should go to pro-Hamas countries. Qatar, Iran, if you send them there, Turkey.
This is totally neglecting the fact that they're being forced from their homes. They shouldn't have to go anywhere. Not to mention, Israel keeps on saying, oh, it's only a temporary move. They can come back. There's nothing to go back to. Like, what they're doing, like, she's just talking about a war crime so casually. The total displacement of over 1 million people. Like, normally, that type of statement, that type of number would be hyperbolic. But we are talking literally over 1 million people have already been displaced within Gaza. And now she's saying that through this one little tiny crossing, they're supposed to somehow leave and go to all these other Muslim countries because, of course, since they're Muslim, all Muslim countries are the same. It doesn't work like that, and they shouldn't have to move.
Those are pro-Hamas countries. That's where they should go.
But they're on the run for their lives, taking whatever they can, their kids in tow. They're not able to get into Egypt. How are you supposed to even make it to Qatar at this point?
Isn't that telling that Egypt won't take them? Why won't Egypt take them?
Yeah, why won't the States take Mexicans? They're both of the Americas. Why don't they like, it's just... There's lots of reasons why a country won't take on 1 million refugees. For one, it's lack of resources. They don't have the money. They don't have the ability to house them. And they shouldn't have to. Like, oh my God, that's the thing. They shouldn't have to, because they shouldn't be forced to move from where they're at. Like, all countries put up barriers when it comes to accepting that many refugees because it's so hard to absorb that number of people unless you have, like, setups in place, like organizations, money, resources. And to say that's all because they're all terrorists, well, I guess that is exactly what, Americans say when it comes to Mexicans wanting to cross the border, is that they're all gang members and horrible drug smugglers and stuff. So it's just transposing their own bigotry over to other countries. But, it's not the responsibility of Egypt to take these people in. Israel is at fault for what's happening here. Like, why doesn't Israel open up its border from the Gaza Strip to allow, the innocent civilians that they claim they're protecting better than any other war and all that sort of stuff? Why don't they open up their borders and just, let the Palestinians into Israel? Where they'd be safe. At least that would be one area that the IDF wouldn't bomb.
Because they don't trust which ones are terrorists and which ones aren't. It's a sad state of affairs. But the reality of that evil is very clear in Arab countries, too. Arab countries have very much always been cautious and know the threats that Iran can place. They don't want those terrorist proxies coming after them. Saudi Arabia felt the Houthis in that fight for Yemen. Egypt knows exactly what they can do.
I guarantee you, she knows nothing about what she's talking about right now. This was all fed to her. I guarantee you, she doesn't understand the dynamics. She doesn't know what's going on. She was just told to say these things. Oh, this country that, and this country this, and you know, you connect the dots that way. I guarantee you, she has no fucking clue what's happening.
But instead of the world hitting on Israel, who was brought to her knees in the worst invasion since the Holocaust, why isn't everybody talking to Egypt? Why aren't they talking to Turkey? Why aren't they talking to Qatar?
Because those aren't the countries that are bombing Gaza. That would be why.
Why aren't they talking to Iran? Why aren't they doing something to help the Palestinians?
They shouldn't have to be doing anything to help the Palestinians because Israel shouldn't be bombing them. And this is the caliber of people that are running for president in the United States. Okay, I can't say too much there because we're going to get to one of our candidates for premier here, and he's a total dork as well. So,
if that's the case, why is it you come back to Israel and the U.S.? It's always the case. Everybody loves to help Israel when she's hit. But all of a sudden, they're quick to beat up on Israel when she hits back.
Why is Israel a she? Why are you gendering the country that is run mostly by men as a she? Yeah, you know, for Republicans who don't like pronouns and all that sort of stuff in general, it's odd that they would endow a country with a pronoun. I don't know. It seems weird to me to refer to the country as an entity as opposed to, you know, the people who are actually running the government there and doing the horrific acts.
If that had happened to America, do you not think we would have hit back? But where are the friends of those pro-Hamas people? Where are the friends of Gaza? They should be the ones doing what they need to save them. It shouldn't be on Israel, who watched their people get butchered on October 7th.
Where should...
It's absolutely on Israel to stop the bombing. They're the only ones that can do that. Israel is the only one that can stop the massive amounts of bombs on the ground. Just wanted to put in perspective. Let's see, where is it? There we go. So, not seen since Vietnam, Israel dropped hundreds of 2,000-pound bombs on Gaza, analysis show. In the first, I can make that bigger. Just a sec. In the first month of its war, Gaza, Israel dropped, and again, referring to this as a war is a little misleading. It's not like it's two equal sides battling it out. So Israel dropped hundreds of massive bombs, many of them capable of killing or wounding people more than 1,000 feet away, analysis by CNN and artificial intelligence company Synthetic suggest. So wounding people more than 1,000 feet away in one of the most densely populated places in the world. And you're telling me they're trying to avoid civilians? That they don't want to target civilians? Satellite imagery from those early days of the war revealed more than 500 impact craters over 12 meters, 40 feet in diameter, consistent with those left by 2,000-pound bombs. Those are 4 times heavier than the largest bombs the United States dropped on ISIS in Iraq during the war against extremist groups there. Weapons and warfare experts blame the extensive use of heavy munitions such as the 2,000-pound bomb for the soaring death toll. The population of Gaza is packed together much more tightly than almost anywhere else on Earth, so to use such heavy munitions has profound effect. The use of 2,000-pound bombs in an area as densely populated as Gaza means it will take decades for communities to recover, says John Chappell, Advocacy and Legal Fellow at CIV Civic, a DC-based focused on minimizing civilian harm in conflict. And so here's like shows suspected 2,000-pound bomb craters in Gaza. And as you can see, it's all over the place. Including, areas to the south where they told people to flee. Those areas have also been hit by these 2,000-pound bombs. And this is a picture of what that devastation looks like. So again, the death toll in the Israeli-Palestinian conflicts over the last 15 years. If we look at that, looks a little bit, one-sided. Looks a lot one-sided. Last updated January 3rd. In the next couple of weeks, it's going to be over 25,000. So craters larger than 12 meters are these yellow dots. The smaller craters are these white dots all over the place. Like, it's horrific that they get away with, they're blaming all of this on Hamas. Hamas isn't the one doing this. Again, they were 2 separate incidences. And the way Israel responded is a way that it was a choice. They used it as an excuse to unleash hell on Gaza. It's absolutely horrific what is happening over there, and the way it's not just Republicans, a lot of the Democrats are still trying to justify it, still trying to minimize it. It's disgusting, unlike anything you could really imagine. Let's see. So I wanted to touch on this one as well because, everyone is saying condemn Hamas and all this sort of stuff and doing comparisons. Now, many of you might know from my other videos, I'm not a fan of Brianna Joy Gray. Brianna Joy Gray. Not a fan of hers at all. That said, I have no idea how she kept her cool through this, through what Robbie was saying. And okay, I challenge anyone to look at this following video and look at Robbie here, the co-host on The Hill, and try not to think that he is the mirror universe of what Fry from Futurama would be. That's all I can think of when I see this guy. I have no idea how she held this together, but asking descendants of slaves if she condemns the loss of Confederate lives during the Civil War, asking Palestinians to condemn every expression of resistance to their occupation. So she's just kind of this was in comparison of like, why don't all Palestinians condemn Hamas for everything that Hamas has done, when Hamas is sometimes the only group that's fighting back, the only one that's really speaking out and supporting them. And yeah, what Robbie, this douche says here is just so unbelievable. Oh, I should check the chat first to make sure the audio is okay. No, stop. We'll play you in a second. Real low, extremely low. So everything is very quiet. Okay. I have increased the volume to the audio output. So let me know if this is okay. So video is quite low. So at least I've known how to lower it extremely low. Yeah, I told everyone to shout at me and then I totally didn't even look at it. Okay. Sorry about that. I hope you guys actually heard that video. Let me know this time and hopefully I'll actually remember to look over. So I've turned up the audio. Sorry about that. Let me know if you guys have actually heard what that video was. Okay. We'll go from here.
I'm surprised you have this. It sounds. I mean, the North did like. I mean, you could say that was fine. They needed to do that, and this was necessary to end the institution of slavery, which is horrible. The hundreds of thousands of deaths, the invasion and conquest of the South, the like burning of city after city, a scorched earth policy of totally destroying the Confederate armed forces, killing and capturing their leaders. Like that's fine. That's what we did. We can't like examine. I mean, I think it's fine to wonder if that was like the greatest course of action or the ideal way to bring about the end of slavery, particularly because the North invented the draft and the purpose of doing it, which is, in my view, also a form of slavery, that one that then persisted for like another 100 years.
Comparing the draft to slavery? Whew. Yeah, He does know that Israel has a draft, you know, that all Israelis over there have to serve in the military. He knows that, right? Wow.
Forcing people to go die in warfare is the most objectionable thing I could possibly think of.
There are worse things than that. It's like
weird. I think 400 years of chattel slavery having ritualized.
If the government can make you die. If they can make you die.
Do you think slave owners can kill their slaves and didn't kill their slaves?
I'm saying this is a form of slavery. I'm not saying slavery is not slavery.
You just said that the draft is the worst thing that you could think of. And we're having a conversation about chattel slavery in the United States of America.
If the government can make you go die on a foreign battlefield, you don't own yourself in any conceivable way. So that's why I don't romanticize the North's actions.
You have a right to get married if you're in a war. If you're drafted, you have a right to keep your own children, not have them literally sold away from you as property. You have a right to wages for your labor. You had a right to a GI Bill.
Inventing one kind of slavery is the right way to get.
Robbie, you can make your point without making a comparison between the draft and chattel slavery, which was a multi-generational pogrom against millions of Africans who were brought across the Atlantic and kept for hundreds of years without a single right in the land.
Very bad, shouldn't have done any of it, should not have enslaved people in the course of ending it.
Wow. Huh. Yeah, how she didn't take his laptop and smash him over the head with it, I'm like, to keep a certain level of professional decorum going on when somebody says something so outrageous. It's just, wow. Wow. Oh, horrible. Like, it just, yeah, again, no fan of Brianna Joy Gray here, but my God, how do you sit there? Like, just to, like, the amount of oozing and utter privilege coming from this man because a draft might affect someone like him. You know, a white man. Although white men with privilege rarely ever had to serve in drafts because, you know, they always found ways out of it and whatnot and, you know, spur and a foot or something like that. So they often found a way out of it. But, you know, a draft might target somebody like this white guy right there. So it is the worst thing possible because then he might be sent overseas and then he might end up dying in a war over there. Might, but he has a far better chance of surviving that than anyone could during, you know, the chattel slavery part of the American history. Like none of them died of old age. None. And everything that was done to them up until those points. But having to potentially go over to a war for a couple of years and then come back home. That's just as bad. Wow. It's horrible. Horrible. Okay, so people are saying that the audio is good now. Okay. Type a 1 if I need to go over this again, if it was that bad. So then that's a very clear indication to me that I might need to do this part over. So type a 1 if I need to go over this Nikki Haley segment again. And then I just have to wait for the delay. So I'll sip from my majority report travel mug. Or if it was manageable, then, you know, we can move on to the next topic of the Gaza stuff. Okay, I'm seeing a few ones. Oh, it was that bad. Okay, so before we start,
The Palestinians go.
let me know if this is
Well,
good.
you know, they should be going through the Rafah Gate and Egypt take them. But I've always said that, you know, what.
So did type a 1 if you just heard, no, type, not a 1. Type 3 if you heard clearly this audio
What you
here.
should have is they should go to pro-Hamas countries.
Midi Doctors, I understand the restrictions of getting MR merch. The amount I had to pay for shipping and customs pretty much doubled the price. Okay. Okay, so the audio is good now. You see, it's so deceptive for me because in OBS, what I do is you have these audio bars that light up or whatever. And so they were about matched. So I think it's okay, but then I guess it's not. Okay, so I will go over this again. Hopefully I will remember all the amazing commentary I had the first time. Luckily, it's not a long clip.
Where should the Palestinians go?
Well, they should be going through the Rafah Gate and Egypt take them. But I've always said that, what you should have is they should go to pro-Hamas countries. Qatar, Iran, if you send them there, Turkey, those are pro-Hamas countries. That's where they should go.
No, they shouldn't have to go anywhere. Remember, I made that point earlier. They shouldn't have to go anywhere because their home is in Gaza, and over 1 million people. I wish that was a hyperbole, but over 1 million people have already been dislocated within Gaza and told to move. And Israel is at fault for that, not these other countries. Israel is the country responsible for this. It's not on other countries to take them in, and to constantly refer to them as pro-Hamas is racist. Like, just because a country might be majority Muslim doesn't mean that they'd be a fan of Hamas. Like, it's just, not all Muslim countries are the same. There's a reason why there's borders and stuff. And why don't all European countries just allow other Europeans in? Why didn't America let the English-speaking white Jewish people in during the Second World War? Why didn't they do that?
But they're on the run for their lives, taking whatever they can, their kids in tow. They're not able to get into Egypt. How are you supposed to even make it to Qatar at this point?
Isn't that telling that Egypt won't take them? Why won't?
There's plenty of reasons why a country won't take on over 1 million refugees. Lack of resources, lack of space, lack of ability, lack of money. Like, it's just the undertaking she is asking Egypt to take on when they shouldn't have to. Again, they shouldn't have to, because this shouldn't be happening to the people in Gaza. And just this one little tiny border crossing is the only one that they can get through. They're making a mess and then demanding that everyone else around them clean it up.
Egypt take them because they don't trust which ones are terrorists and which ones aren't. It's a sad state of affairs, but the reality of that evil is very clear in Arab countries too. Arab countries have very much always been cautious and know the threats that Iran can place. They don't want those terrorist proxies coming after them. Saudi Arabia felt the Houthis in that fight for Yemen. Egypt knows exactly what they can do. But instead of the world hitting on Israel,
like I said before, I guarantee you she doesn't know anything of what she just said. She doesn't know anything about it. I seriously doubt she has any clue what the dynamics really are over there. These are just talking points that she was fed into, and if you were to actually push her for information and details on any of this, she'd have no fucking clue what she's talking about.
Israel, who was brought to her knees in the worst invasion since the Holocaust. Why isn't everybody talking to Egypt? Why aren't they talking to Turkey? Why aren't they talking to Qatar? Why aren't they talking to Iran? Why aren't they doing something to help the Palestinians?
Because they shouldn't have to. Why talk to them? Why not talk to Israel and say, hey, Israel, open up your border to all the civilians that you say that you're doing the best to protect and you aren't targeting any of them? Why don't you open up your borders to all the, children and babies and innocent people who are not part of Hamas? Because you're the one who's bombing them.
If that's the case, why is it you come back to Israel and the U.S.? It's always the case. Everybody loves to help Israel when she's hit. But all of a sudden they hit.
Yeah, and so why is she referring to Israel as a she? For Republicans who are so obsessed with pronouns and stuff, why is Israel a she? Like, it's a country run mostly by men at that. And then it takes away some of the, it's not the country doing this. It is the people who run the country. It is the men who run the country that is doing this. Israel is not good or bad. It just is the name of a country. So why are you referring to the country as if it's its own entity when it's the people who run that country that are causing all this harm?
They're quick to beat up on Israel when she hits back. If that had happened to America, do you not think we would have hit back? But where are the friends of those pro-Hamas people? Where are the friends of Gaza? They should be the ones doing what they need to save them. It shouldn't be on Israel, who watched their people get butchered on October 7th.
It should be on Israel because they're sending over hundreds of 2,000-pound bombs. Like over 22,000 people now have died. And it shouldn't have to be repeated over and over. But what Hamas did and what Israel is doing are two separate things. You can condemn Hamas for what they did, and you can condemn the people who are running Israel for what they're doing. You know, like she's calling Israel a country while referring to Gaza as Hamas. You know, so Israel isn't made up of a group of people who is doing this. I think I had a point there. Just crossing some wires. So she was referring to Gaza as basically Hamas, instead of just saying, you know, an entity within, but then she's referring to Israel as a single entity, you know, regardless of all the people in Israel, the government that it's causing all this harm. So she's separating it there, but not in the other place. It's what I think I'm trying to say there. Anyway, let's check the sandbox now that the audio is a little bit better, and I hope I made all the same amazing points that I made the first time we watched that video. And next time I will have to remember that when I ask the chat a question to actually look. ADHD on display. Christy said, there is like no good news anywhere. You know what? I'm going to get to some good news later on. Some positive news. I'm actually going to cover some positive news later on. Natural view. We need to hear the news, even if most of the news is not good. Good thing we all have the best company, being informed together. Thanks, Sandy. Well, thank you for hanging out in the sandbox. And yeah, you guys are a great community. I'm glad that I've been able to gather some of you. A lot of you are over from like the Majority Report, and then it's the same group of people that go to the Majority Report, Leftist Mafia, Dan from the Internet, all the other things like that, and you're a good group. MIDI doctors, it doesn't matter what the relative severity is between Hamas and Israeli crimes. All crimes stand alone in law, and especially international law. The actions of the victims does not mitigate. Yeah. They are two separate things that should be treated as two separate things. And then everyone commenting on Robbie Bad Lefty, God, he's painfully stupid. And Looney Tunes 9000, Robbie the racist. Yeah. Although tell me he is not the mirror universe of Fried from Futurama. Shmigli, the chance of going to war opposed to being a slave from birth. Yeah. Wow. Shade Dragon, spoken like a privileged brat used to being in a higher caste. I'd bet her family are Brahmin? I think I said that right. MIDI doctors, it's ridiculous. They are being asked to move. Yeah. Like, it's so hard to comprehend. You know, exactly what Israel, the government of Israel, has done to the people in Gaza. Like, they act like they're being so holy and generous by saying, well, we gave them warning that they should move. But there's no way they should have ever had to move. You know, wiping out, turning entire neighborhoods to rubble to go after one terrorist organization within that's like super teeny tiny portion of the population. Like, does Canada get to turn to rubble all of the Bible Belt or something? Because, well, not just Canada, but like the LGBTQ plus community. Do we get to turn the Bible Belt to rubble because there's extremists within there that want us dead? MIDI doctors, I volunteer Egypt. Fuck off. Yeah. Like, we don't get to dictate which countries do what over there. It's like just the idea of how dare they don't do what we're telling them to. Let's see. And then the Agent NDN on Twitter. Go give him a follow if you're still on there. But he always brings a very interesting perspective to what's happening over there. And so he's quote tweeting the Auschwitz Memorial Twitter account, which says, our account has lost over 7,000 followers in December. We continue to ask for your engagement. You create this incredible community and help keep the memory alive. Support Auschwitz Museum and amplify our voice. Speaking of voice, I'm losing mine. To which Agent NDN says, I'm surprised that that's all the Auschwitz Memorial has lost in followers since they revealed that never again doesn't extend to Palestinians in their view. And just so that we know what he's talking about, here's the Holocaust Museum calling Israel's indiscriminate killing of thousands of Palestinian civilians self-defense. So from that Twitter account that's so concerned that they're losing followers, resolution of the International Auschwitz Council on the tragic events in Israel approved by circulation on 18 November 2023. The International Auschwitz Council by the Prime Minister of the Republic Poland acknowledges with the deepest pain and sorrow the suffering of innocent victims, tortured, raped, taken hostage, and murdered by Hamas terrorists. And what's happening to the Palestinians? Again, two separate things. You can condemn two separate things. We wish to express our unwavering solidarity with Israel's and Israelis and Jews worldwide. Threatened in its existence, the stance of the state of Israel has the right to self-defense. in accordance with international law and the principles of humanitarianism. They are violating international law right now. They're doing the thing, you know, the genocide. They're doing that. They're doing the war crimes right now. They're not they're not in accordance with international law right now. The existence of a free, sovereign, and democratic Jewish state is one of the pillars of world peace. Why? Why does world peace, like, it's a big globe, why is that a pillar for world peace? The unimaginable hatred and violence perpetrated by terrorists only results in the extensive and more widespread suffering affecting also the civilian population of Gaza, whom Hamas exploits as human shields. Yeah, it's the bombs that are affecting the civilian population of Gaza. It's the lack of water, lack of electricity, lack of supplies, lack of food, lack of access, targeting of civilians, targeting of media, targeting of hospitals and schools. That's what's affecting the civilian population of Gaza. An essential first step is to halt the horrifying spiral of death and war is the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. We demand we make with all of our might. And yet they don't say anything about all the Palestinians that Israel has wrongfully imprisoned for years. Yeah, it is. So more from the agent NDN. As a native person, this kind of shit deeply offends me. Settlers trying to shut down anti-colonial, anti-genocide protests on stolen land speaks to pathetic level of colonial entitlement and feigned victimry. Nobody is endangered here by asking Israelis to stop. So he's quote tweeting a tweet that says, not content with supporting the genocidal apartheid state activities abroad, Zionist MPs, current and former, are also demanding Palestinians stay out of Jewish neighborhoods in Canada. And so we have some current and former MPs, that's members of parliament here in Canada. So from Michael, let's be clear, the targeting of Avenue Road overpass in North Toronto by anti-Israel mob is far from random. That overpass is a few hundred meters from a predominantly Jewish neighborhood and is home to multiple synagogues and Jewish schools. And it's a former MP for that, blah, blah, blah. And somebody else saying, as I stated last week and will repeat again, protests within largely Jewish neighborhoods like the ones in our riding of York Center is completely unacceptable. Targeting an overpass in an area known to be local Jewish community is a form of intimidation. Yeah. Where would the logical place be to support Palestinian rights? Where would the logical places be for them to hold rallies, to get attention? Because it's not just those neighborhoods. They're actually doing it all over the place. It's not just those neighborhoods. And to try to say, no, you have to stay out of Jewish neighborhoods when you're holding your protests. Yeah, that is some colonial bullshit going on there. Let's see. Oh, okay. We've been at this for an hour. So I still have a couple more segments on Gaza that I wanted to do, but I think I'll save them for next time and I'll skip to just this one. South Africa files case at ICJ accusing Israel of genocidal acts in Gaza. Israel, which has been accused of meting out collective punishment on Palestinians, has rejected the case at the UN court. South Africa has filed a case against Israel at the International Court of Justice, ICJ, accusing it of crimes of genocide against Palestinians in Gaza after nearly 3 months of relentless Israeli bombardment has killed more than 21,500 people, which actually now is over 22,000, and caused widespread destruction in the besieged enclave. In an application to the court on Friday, South Africa describes Israel's actions in Gaza as genocidal in character because they are intended to bring about the destruction of a substantial part of the Palestinian national, racial, and ethnical group. The acts in question include killing Palestinians in Gaza, causing them serious bodily and mental harm, and inflicting on them conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction, the application said. I got a kitty on my lap right now who wants attention right now. The ICJ, also called the World Court, is a UN civil court that adjudicates disputes between countries. It is distinct from the International Criminal Court, which prosecutes individuals for war crimes. So not the same as sending them to the Hague type thing. This is a different court. Got a cat wanting to chew on cords. Okay, stay over here, sweetie. South African President Cyril has compared Israelis' policies in Gaza and the occupied West Bank with his country's past apartheid regime of racial segregation imposed by white minority rule that ended in 1994. Several human rights organizations have said that Israeli policies towards Palestinians amount to apartheid. And it's good that we actually have another country calling it out, a country with experience also. And that shows a certain level of, from South Africa's perspective, like a certain level of accountability, to say, we stopped it here, we're going to call it out in other countries as well. We're not going to let it slide, which is a very good step, which, that ideally used to be the phrase never again. That was started for similar reasons, to never again allow a genocide to happen to anyone. And so it's good that South Africa is saying, yeah, this type of apartheid, this type of thing, we're not going to sit by and allow it to happen in other countries. And of course, Israel rejects South Africa's accusations. Israel has rejected South Africa's moves as baseless, calling it blood libel. I had some choice words there. South Africa's claims lack both factual and legal basis and constitutes despicable and contemptuous exploitation of the court, Israel's Minister of Foreign Affairs said in a statement posted on X. Israel has made it clear that the residents of the Gaza Strip are not the enemy and is making every effort to limit the harm to the non-involved and allow humanitarian aid to enter the Gaza Strip, the statement added. And we know that is a blatant lie. They're dropping bombs on civilian populations, and they're not allowing humanitarian aid through. They're not even allowing electricity through. It's all. The horrors happening over there, it's so hard to comprehend. Yeah. Okay, let's check the sandbox. The Emo Dragon. Hi, Sandy. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, too. I hope everyone had a good New Year. I went to a small gathering of friends. It was quite nice, actually. I still have to learn when people are flirting with me because I'm thinking back to it and it's like, I'm not entirely sure. if this one guy was flirting with me. And when I say I'm not entirely sure, I mean I have no clue. I suspect it might be the case, but I have no real idea, no sense. And it always feels weird trying to then say to somebody like, "Are you flirting with me?" Because then that would totally like destroy anything. Oh. Da, 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 da. Bad lefty, then stop killing them. Yeah. The gaslighting is suffocating to watch, says Shamigli. I have no idea if I'm saying your name right. So, let's see. What shall we go to next? I think I'll save the Canadian news for after more world news. Because, yeah, there was an earthquake in Japan. God, I have a cat on my lap and he's making my lap fall asleep. It's not fair to everyone for you to be on my lap without showing your cute little face. See? Now go back to just sitting on my lap. It's fine when he just sits there. It's when he starts chewing on cords and moving around and stuff that it becomes a little bit more challenging. Okay, so there's no videos attached to this I want to watch. Okay, so I don't need to shove that earpiece back in my ear. Earpieces really bug my ear canals. I don't think my ear canals are made for them, so they hurt after a while. Okay. Huh. Let's see if I can center that a bit more. There we go. Battle against time to find quake survivors as Japan lifts tsunami warning and death toll rises. Scenes of devastation emerged along Japan's western coast Tuesday as rescuers raced to save residents trapped in the rubble of a 7.5 magnitude quake that triggered multiple aftershocks and killed dozens of people. So 7.5 is on the Richter scale. That's a severe earthquake. It's a very severe earthquake. And apparently this one was also pretty shallow, which also makes it the shaking much more severe. So the quake shook the Noto Peninsula in the central prefecture of on Monday afternoon, collapsing buildings, sparking fires, and triggering tsunami alerts as far away as eastern Russia. At least 57 people have been killed. That's actually been raised to 62, I believe. Yeah, 62. According to the Japanese public broadcaster, and 5 people were killed at the Tokyo airport on Tuesday when a Japan airline jet collided with a Coastal Guard plane on its way to provide earthquake relief, which we'll touch on in a second. But just to give you an idea of the scope, so we have these little sliding scales here, and you can see before and after. Just that level of complete destruction. The central city, home to more than 27,000 people, appeared to be among the worst hit. And 15 people were confirmed dead there. The coastal city is famous for its morning market and fine traditional lacquerware, but early surveys from the air on Tuesday revealed smoldering fires and large plumes of smoke engulfing streets and destroying buildings. Yeah, Japan is just in a tectonic plate. Like the way the tectonic plates are, it's a subduction zone there. And whenever you're on the border of a tectonic plate, especially one that goes under the other, there's going to be lots of volcanoes, earthquakes, and then if you're also happen to be where there's water in one of those zones, then tsunamis. And so Japan is just one geological disaster after another. So here we can see damage across the Noto Peninsula after the earthquake. More than 45,000 homes in the prefecture are without power, and more than 30,000 people are in evacuation shelters after Monday's 7.5 magnitude earthquake. The earthquake triggered tsunami warnings in 6 prefectures and caused widespread damage to roads and buildings. These towns are believed to have suffered the most damage, government officials said. And so here you can see the epicenter right on the corner there and the radius that it hit. And again, we have in there a sliding scale to see how bad the destruction was. And you can see even like in the river there. So we have the river here, all the silt and stuff that gets built up and thrown into it after that. It's just, it's so devastating. And it's always, you know, the people who can't afford to live in the homes that have the best earthquake codes and things of that sort that are the ones that suffer the most, because they're the ones that tend to lose their homes. And just, yeah, the destruction to infrastructure is incredible. Like the cracks in the roads, damage to bridges, railway tracks. Like parts of areas will be cut off completely from supplies. It is just, I think a lot of people who don't deal with earthquakes have no idea how devastating that they actually are. So luckily the tsunami warning was lifted. We'll get a little bit into the tsunamis. They were not that big. Don't think there's any audio to this, but let's just do that. So we can see the tsunami in the background there, breaking over the wall that they have up, the seawall, but nowhere near the 2010 level of tsunamis that they got, which were the ones that just killed tens of thousands of people. Scooch over to this one. What's this? Yep, so at least 62 people dead. Fears grow about saving people still trapped. So one of the hard things with the earthquake is just getting the supplies and the equipment into the areas where there are the collapsed buildings in order to be able to rescue people, because a lot of the roads are going to be impassable. So it takes a while. It takes time to get to these locations, and especially in the winter, you run the risk of freezing to death while you're waiting for somebody to come rescue you. I think, yeah, so that's just the updated death count that I wanted there. And it already has its own Wikipedia page, believe it or not, the 2024 Sea of Japan earthquake. And so I glanced over this, and if you want to go check it out on your own, it seems to have everything. But I don't just want to rattle off a Wikipedia page. So the tsunami, so the first waves were reported to have arrived around 1621 with tsunami waves exceeding 1.2 meters, that's 4 feet. A tide gauge at the nuclear power plant recorded a rise of 3 meters, that's 9.8 feet in tide level. At between these times, the tsunami measuring 90 centimeters, which is 35 inches, struck a tsunami of 80 centimeters, 31 inches. So, you know, these are fairly small tsunamis, but they're still tsunamis by definition. And so the other tragic thing that happened with this was Japan airline jet burst into flame after collision with earthquake relief plane at Tokyo airport. And there's actual footage So fortunately, everyone that was on the airline passenger plane got off, and they had like just a couple minutes to get off that flight before it burst into flame. And the Coast Guard jet had 6 people in it, and 5 of those people unfortunately didn't make it. And they were on, so here you can actually see the accident happen. I believe this is the footage of it. Well, it's just on flames as it's going down the runway. But, good on the crew of that airliner to be able to get all the passengers off the plane so quickly. And yeah, it was a coastline or Coast Guard plane that was going to help with relief for the earthquake and stuff. So, oftentimes a lot of these tragedies are just compounded by other tragedies. You can see this even with forest fires in North America, because every now and then there's the firefighters that lose their lives, or a plane that will go down while they're trying to fight these fires. And so there's all these other like secondary kind of tragedies that happen around these. Um, believe I've So, Japan Airlines is taking part in an investigation to determine who is responsible for the deadly crash. Its senior vice president of corporate safety and security told reporters. The French aviation agency is also sending its own investigators to Tokyo to probe the collision as part of the investigation team opened by Japan Transport Safety Board, it said in a statement. In a later statement, Japan Airlines said its crew had been cleared to land by air traffic control before the collision. Audio from live ATC net appears to detail the crew reading back the clearance order for runway 34 saying cleared to land 34 right. So, just so unfortunate. Let's see. Oops. Yeah, unfortunately, there's no way to predict earthquakes. That's something science has been after for a long, long time. They're inevitable in a lot of places, but there's no way to know. There's no way to forecast them to say, okay, in this date, this is, expect an earthquake with this range, get to more secure ground, evacuate the area. There is science trying to predict them, but they're still so far beyond our understanding as to exactly when that pressure will break. And, depending on the type of fault lines, the type of tectonic plates, the geography in the area, being able to predict it in one area won't necessarily translate to another area because it all depends on the type of fault line it is as to the different types of pressure that could be involved. And, if it's a fault line that's on land versus one that's under the ocean and all this sort of stuff. And it's so tragic when these things happen. And the only way to avoid these tragedies is to just not build on places where there's likely to be earthquakes, which unfortunately can't be undone at this point. Okay, let's check the chat. Sandbox. It's the sandbox. I keep on wanting to say check the chat still, but probably because it sounds similar. My dogs are goth. I know my niece and nephews have earthquake drills in schools often. Yeah, there's lots of people who will say, okay, this is what you do in case of an earthquake and stuff. If you're near an exit, get out of the building. Get out of the building, try to get away from anything that's falling, like get into an open field type thing if you can. Because there's all that talk about door frames and stuff like that. And under a sturdy desk or a table that isn't likely to collapse and can handle some weight. Then you see like some American ideas of like for earthquakes where if you're on a bed, the bed will like collapse and fold in, and you have like an emergency supply of water and oxygen with you, which to me just seems so horrific. The thought of like, okay, so you're just basically in a coffin at that point. But yeah, it's if you can get outdoors like really fast, you get your ass outdoors and away from buildings if possible. But if you don't have that option, find the most sturdy desk or table to get under. Shamigli 7.5 is massive. Yeah, that's a big quake. It's a big quake. But from the looks of the maps, part of the reason why the tsunami wasn't so big was, let's see. Yeah, the main part of it, I think, happened on land, which would be why the tsunamis weren't so devastating. See, that would be where the epicenter is. Oh, gotta switch back to this if I'm going to reference this. So yes, this picture here, you can see it looks like the epicenter was actually on land. So then far less likely for tsunamis to happen in that instance. Oh, my dogs are goth, saying Kelly just informed us Epstein papers released. Look it up. Oh, it's tempting. MIDI doctors, I thought the idea was to have sex in a doorway. That can help in a lot of occasions for other things, and it might make the ground shake. Kelly saying about 30 minutes ago, and they are saying the service crashed. Wouldn't surprise me. Looney Tunes 9000. Yes, I switched back to the Wikipedia page when I realized I was referencing it without showing it on the screen. I once experienced an earthquake, well, twice here. There's actually some tectonic plates colliding up around the Ottawa area, and every now and then there'll be an earthquake, but they're very, very, very mild earthquakes. And I was aware of it twice, a little bit of shaking. And I remember the first time that happened, and I was sitting up in my apartment and things started shaking. I'm like, oh my God, okay, I've prepared for this. I know everything that I'm supposed to do. And I just sat there because I realized that, yeah, it's not going to be bad here. Just a couple things fell off the shelf, but nothing even broke. So I'm like, I have this, and then totally didn't do anything. But yeah, the earthquakes that we suffer here, like no damage, nothing, just some very mild shaking. We had more severe ice quakes or something. Basically, when the ground freezes and snaps, I got more shaking from some of those, which never used to be a thing, you know. But climate change has brought those things on. MIDI doctors, I was in a tiny earthquake once, yeah. I think the ones that I've been in were like a 2 on the scale, like super, super mild. I don't know if I want to look at the Epstein papers now, because I might want to just review some of the material before I have a hard time covering breaking news, because I like to check sources, absorb information, figure out some things, you know, formulate an opinion before I just kind of get to it, as opposed to just react. Because then sometimes I don't know if I'm reacting to things in context or not. Not to mention the servers are probably crashing. Everyone's at it right now. So I don't know how entertaining that would be to watch. Hunger Games 1989. But Sandy, climate change isn't real. Yeah. Let's see. So, oh gosh, it's 7:30 already. I wanted to cover a lot of. Okay, so yeah, I want to cover this stuff. So here we go.
Today in Canadian news.
Would it surprise anyone if I said CEOs are horrible people and inflation is devastating and the housing crisis is only getting worse? So somebody saying, so you support higher taxes to pay for services. And Joe here is an opinion columnist. Freedom means the freedom to respectfully disagree, but always listen. Yeah, I'm sure. I'll walk through Clarence Square Park on Spadina, but warning, it isn't pretty. Make sure there's no volume on that.
Clarence.
It doesn't need volume, that's all. As you see, tent encampments in the horrible, dreary weather, tents. And with weather like this, you know, all belongings that get exposed to the moisture will, you know, go bad. Will develop mold, become very unhealthy. It's hard to get it dry. Just horrible, horrible situation to be in. And a lot of people will just complain about these tent encampments and how much of an eyesore they are without offering any real solutions. And this is Canada, you know. We have the money to solve the housing crisis, but we're choosing not to. Like, they don't have to be there. But just, like he's like, it isn't pretty. Like, oh no, does it hurt your little eyeballs to have to see this? You know, instead of having empathy to think about what these people are going through. And sometimes, like, as I've said in many, many situations, like living in an encampment, that's you're choosing the least worst option when you're in these situations. You're not there because you want to be there. It's just every other option available to you is worse. So it's the least worst option. And then people still complain like, oh, why aren't they taking, you know, the city up on their offer of shelters and stuff like that? And it's like, if you knew anything about the shelter system and some of the harms that they can cause, you'd understand. And, you know, this becomes a community where they have supports and networks and people to look out for them. And I have a cat who's waking up on my lap who now wants to play with all the cords around me. Am I going to have to kick you out? Although he's being absolutely adorable, lying on his back, exposing his belly to me. So this one is in Toronto, but we have, sorry, other going-ons in Alberta, Edmonton. Okay, you might, sorry. I have to move a kitty off my lap because he's getting way too handsy with those cords. Okay, go on, sweetie. Go on. He was fine when he was sleeping. Okay.
The city of Edmonton has started clearing out homeless encampments in the downtown core it deems high risk. It follows a court battle earlier this month to address how encampments are taken down and an emergency court injunction that briefly postponed the plan to do so. One of those conditions agreed upon in court is to ensure there is enough shelter space available for people being forced out. Police also need to notify the encampment residents as well as social agencies in advance.
So something I've covered on my channel before is how in Kitchener in Waterloo region here in Ontario, they actually said that the encampment could stay on, it was regional property, because due to the lack of shelter, adequate shelter space for people to go to, which, really says something when even the region is like, yeah, we get that there's nowhere good for you to go, so you can keep your tents up on these concrete slabs on the corner of a very busy intersection where you're exposed to all the fumes and the noise of the traffic.
My next guest was on the scene as police and city workers cleared out an encampment this morning. Nadine Chalifou is chairperson of the Edmonton Coalition on Housing and Homelessness, and she joins us from that city now. Nadine, thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you for having me.
Nadine, tell us, walk us through what you saw earlier today during these evictions.
Well, what I saw was people frantically trying to grab as much possessions as they could and take them with them before police came and the city brought in the trucks to take everything else away from them.
One of the heartbreaking and just devastating things that happens with this, and she's mentioning like people were just scrambling to take their possessions with them, is when you live in these situations, you keep items because they're needed for your immediate survival, or they have so much significance and value to you, you can't bear to part with them. So something of sentimental value, maybe, pictures, a jacket from a loved one, that sort of thing, because you carry only the most important things when you're in these situations, the things that maybe remind you of a better time, remind you of loved ones. And it's treated like garbage by the cities, like literally garbage. They'll just take all of these things and throw them out with no regard for the emotional harm it does to people. And then when it comes to like even the supplies that they have, the sleeping bags, the tents themselves, what they need to survive, how are they supposed to replace those? Sometimes, what they've had to go through to just acquire the things they need, their basic things they need to survive, and to have to start from scratch. It's just, it's so sickening what cities do to people in these encampments.
Saw people scrambling to help these people as well to get this stuff loaded and moved to a new location.
Nadine, under last week's injunction, police are required to give residents advance notice of a clear out. From what you're telling us, it seems like people were scrambling. It didn't look like anybody knew that this was coming. Is that what you saw?
So it's a 48-hour notice that they have to give both the agencies and the people on site. And even though the 48 hours was given, some people were able to get out yesterday, but some are still left scrambling with their stuff today. It's hard to load up your entire belongings into one basket and carry it with you to a new place and be expected to do that within the hour. So
yeah, you get such a short timetable to use your car to move this stuff. Of course you don't have a car. You might not know anyone with a vehicle. So how are you supposed to move all your belongings, and to where? Shelter spaces can have wait times to get into them, certain different types of programs and shelter spaces. And so if they say, okay, you have 48 hours to move out, and, maybe you didn't even hear that initial stuff, so you don't even hear that you have to move out until hours beforehand, where are you going to go? Like, especially if there's no shelter space available, where are you going to go?
they end up scrambling last minute as well.
Edmonton police have designated these encampments as high risk. We saw just a few hours ago the city put out a statement saying this is basically to protect the very people who are living in these encampments. What is your response to that?
There's no protection again for them. They're basically taking these people, kicking them out of the spot they're in already with the stuff they've gathered to help protect themselves, keep themselves safe. That includes blankets, IDs, maybe some memorabilia of family that they carry with them. This stuff is immediately lost if they can't carry it out in the time frame given. But they're not given a place to go to. There is no shelter space for them to go to. We're talking about hundreds of people, and only a few shelters have any space to give with that space.
Yeah, and just to build on the idea that the city is trying to claim, oh, we're doing this for your own good, we're trying to protect you. all this does is traumatize them even more. It causes it causes harm. It doesn't cause anything positive from doing this. Nothing positive comes from this. All it does is traumatize and cause harm to the community.
Base, that means that these people are just going back onto another spot of the street somewhere else and staying there until they're removed from that place too.
The injunction that we just talked about, this temporary injunction, also required that there be adequate shelter space to accommodate the displaced residents. You're saying that for many of these people, there won't be. Where are they going to go?
To another corner of our city, somewhere else to hide, or maybe even a more dangerous area of the city where there's high gang activity or just violent activity constantly going on in certain areas. So this makes the safe places they just found and have accomplished and made a community of is now being dispersed and putting into more dangerous positions.
Nadine, I know that your group has been asking the public to come to witness these evictions. Can you just tell me why you would like members of the public to see this?
So our goal is to have members of the public come join us, witness the process of this disassembling of encampments, and see how nasty, brutal, and how inhumane it is towards these people who have made shelters.
And there's also a certain level of wanting protection from the police, because there's tons of footage, especially from here in Ontario, Toronto and Hamilton, where you see the police absolutely brutalize, the people in the encampments and protesters. Like, the amount of violence they inflict on people is absolutely horrendous. And there's plenty of footage and pictures around of what they've done to people who are peacefully protesting the encampment being destroyed.
Structures, their homes, and they're getting destroyed. And so if we can bring more awareness, their structures, their homes, and they're getting destroyed.
And that's the important part there too, is a lot of people don't understand these are homes to the people who live in this encampment. It's the place that they go to. It's the place that they actually feel safe. And, a lot of people just think of it as a tent or think of it as this, but they don't understand the gravity of what's going on. Their home is being bulldozed. And then they're left with nothing. It is, yeah, all of these, every time you see these encampments being destroyed, it's trauma. It's horrific.
If we can bring more awareness to the public, then the public can actually understand what's going on and why it is not such a great idea to dismantle them, and rather force the governments, city, the provincial, the federal, to fund more housing rather than shelters.
Thank you so much, Nadine. Nadine Chalifoux is the president of the Edmonton Coalition on Housing and Homelessness. Thanks for making time for us, Nadine.
Thank you.
Yeah, food banks shouldn't exist, and neither should shelters, for the very same reason. People should be able to have access to the food that they need, and people should be able to have access to the housing they need. Thought I had another one on that. Sorry, as I scooch through these, I thought I had a follow-up video. I have like a bazillion videos, and I tried to get them all together. Just a sec as I go through my tabs without you reading all of them as I'm going through them. There was a follow-up. Darn it, where is it? And don't worry, I have some good news to end all of this with, because there's been a lot of bad news. Did I not move the tab over or something? Let's see. I can't find it. Okay, maybe I didn't do it. But there was actually footage of the encampment being destroyed. Could have swore it. It gets so confusing when you see so much stuff. Sorry, me staring at the screen isn't exactly gripping content here. Okay, I can't find it, so we'll just move on. So the biggest study of greedflation yet looked at 1,300 corporations to find many of them were lying to you about inflation. I'm shocked. As they rolled their eyes at the frustrating familiar sight of price markups in grocery stores aisles, shoppers in 2022 might have wondered whether corporations were doing everything they could to keep prices down as inflation hit generational highs. The answer now appears to be a resounding no. So inflation soared across the globe last year, peaking at nearly 11% in the Eurozone and above 9% in the US. The source of that high inflation has been well-trodden line. Analysts have typically laid the blame on supply chain bottlenecks created by excess demand during COVID-19 pandemic and exacerbated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. They're always going to find an excuse. The war also increased energy prices, leading to further rises in inflation as suppliers factored in higher transport and running costs. While this obviously contributed to rising prices, the report finds the company's profits increased at a much faster rate than costs did, in a process often dubbed greedflation. So they see they have something that they can use in it. So something that actually causes inflation, but then they use it as an excuse to make the inflation even higher so that they can get their profits even higher. So, it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of, I have a comparison in my brain that I don't want to compare it to because of how drastically severe it is. But yeah, they just looked at everything that was happening, saying, well, this will cause the prices to go up. So let's use this as an excuse to, jack the prices even higher. And so we can get more profits from it. So profits from companies in some of the world's largest economies rose by 30% between 2019 and 2022, significantly outpacing inflation, according to Group's research of 1,350 firms across the US and the UK, Europe, Brazil, and South Africa. So I think we knew that. I think a lot of people knew that. But they're still looking for excuses as to why inflation is happening. So a Twitter peep of mine just highlighting this tweet, the gaslighting never stops, from The Atlantic. Inflation is your fault. If people are so mad about high prices, why do they keep buying so many expensive things? You mean like food? That's expensive. That's expensive things. I went to Walmart just a couple days ago because I needed supplies. Paper towels, toilet paper, cat litter. It was $150. And Walmart's supposed to be the cheap place you go to. How are we supposed to get by on this? Like, inflation is not the consumer's fault. Food economists say the ability to cope with rising prices has been worsened by our collective decline in cooking skills. Oh, again, it's more our fault. We need to be making do with less. They keep on taking away and saying we just need to keep on making do with the scraps that we get. And so that article, I think I clicked on that article. There. Loss of cooking skills has hurt our ability to adapt to rising food prices, experts say. Ha! I've never had cooking skills. Yeah, I regularly burn my food and make myself sick. And I know people say, go online and you can learn that way. No, I can't. It's not a thing for me. It is just, there's a mental barrier there that unless it's just pour in pot and add water, it's too complex for me to do. Skyrocketing prices have taken a big bite out of what Canadians are able to serve up for dinner, but food economists say our ability to cope has been worsened by our collective decline in cooking skills. We are less able to cook than we were 30 or 40 years ago, so it's much more difficult for us to adapt our diet, says Mike Von Masso, an associate professor at the University of Guelph's Food and Agricultural Resource Economics Department. Of course, no amount of cooking prowess will help you if you can't afford a basket of groceries. Nearly 2 million Canadians used food banks in March, according to an annual report by Food Banks Canada. But even for those fortunate enough to still afford their weekly grocery run, a lack of skills to improvise in the kitchen makes it harder to work around high prices, such as swapping ingredients for less expensive alternatives. Yeah, it doesn't matter how good of a cook you are when everything is going up in price. And when the price goes up, we're not talking about, like, I remember there was a time when people used to get upset when like a Tim Hortons coffee went up by 10 cents. But when you see the prices and how they go up in stores, it's not by 10 cents, it's not by 50 cents, it's up by $2 or $3 on an item. Like something I could, use before as a quick meal that was $10 is now suddenly $12.50. And you do that to all of the super cheap stuff, and then suddenly you're having to restrict yourself even more and more and more. And it's ridiculous that they keep on thinking that we're going to be like, we can't survive on this. And yet the CEOs make 246 times the average worker, says a new report. So the people causing the inflation, they're doing just fine. Report author calls inflation contributing factor to the widening pay gap between workers and executives. It was another record-breaking year for Canada's richest CEOs. In one workday, less than a half hour into the new year, 27 minutes to be exact, Canada's 100th highest paid CEOs will have already earned the average worker's annual salary, according to a new study by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. It translates to roughly 60,600 by 9:27 a.m. on January 2nd, if you include Monday as a paid holiday, according to the report. The CCPA, an Ottawa-based think tank that focuses on social, economic, and environmental issues, found that the 100 best paid CEOs in Canada now make 246 times the typical workers earn. That number breaks last year's record of 243 times the average worker's pay. The 100 CEOs, who are overwhelmingly male, got paid an average of $14.9 million in 2022. This amount surpasses their previously record-breaking pay of $14.3 million in 2021 and sets a new all-time high in our data series, said David, a senior economist at the CCPA, at the reporters and the report's author. Yep. That's and then people wonder where that inflation is going to. We've seen CEO pay increase consistently over the last number of years to a point now where it's the highest it's been. And at the same time, we have seen these CEOs and their employer clubs that they're part of lobbying every single day and fighting tooth and nail to make sure that we don't have better labor laws in this country. And there's lots more information there, but yeah. So addressing the gap, the union leader thinks governments can help reduce growing inequality. She supports measures such as improving and expanding access to collective bargaining rights for workers, raising the minimum wage, and ensuring people have a guaranteed hours of work. And of course, sometimes when these workers go on strike, you get the provinces then passing legislation to force them back to work. Sometimes even violating their rights, sometimes even using the notwithstanding clause to violate their rights. I think the challenge is that more work needs to be done on a number of fronts to make sure that workers are not falling behind, says Lena, who believes the measures could reduce what she calls the inequality gap. Also, other suggestions for reducing the pay gap. The group suggests introducing higher top marginal tax brackets, removing corporate tax deductibility for compensation over 1 million, introducing a wealth tax on the rich, and increasing capital gains inclusion rate, making CEOs pay more taxes on the money they make selling stocks. Funny thing about that is whenever we try to pass legislation on that, the liberals and conservatives always vote it down. Yeah. They always tend to agree on that when it comes to voting on legislation, to not add taxes to the wealthy and that sort of stuff. The NDP has tried to pass that legislation, but no, liberals and conservatives, they team up to vote that down. We've seen the active closure of stock options deductions in 2021, as well as new higher income tax brackets in 2016. So this is something where we've seen a lot of debt, particularly in areas like the new wealth tax, said McDonald. So highest paid executives in Canada. J. Patrick Doyle, Restaurant Brands International Inc., 151.8 million. Ooh. You know, the rich are looking really appetizing right now. You know, when we run out of money to buy groceries, there's rich people that are very bloated that I think would feed a lot of people. Matthew Proud, Dye and Durham Limited, just shy of 100 million. Yeah. And then like all of these corporations that we hear of that own like all these other corporations and so on and so forth, like Restaurants Brands International, it's on the list twice. You know, the amount of restaurants that they must own. And so it doesn't matter. Like you can go from an expensive restaurant to a cheaper restaurant because that's all you can afford. And yet the same people are still making money from that. Shopify is on the list. You know, Rogers Telecom can't. That's not surprising at all. But another thing to point out. He noted, so this is from a different article talking about the pay gaps over the years and stuff. And somebody saying, so McDonald told the Global News Corporation's aim for the CEO paid, blah, blah, blah. But the gap between the average worker's pay and CEO pay has grown over the years, approaching 250 times, up from 100 times in the 1990s and 50 times in the 1980s. So that just keeps on getting worse and worse and worse over time. And so with all this inflation, the cost of groceries and all that sort of stuff, and we still get this. People saying, kids wonder how our parents were able to survive with one paycheck. This is exactly how it was done. See the size of this house? This was normal when I was growing up. No 5-bedroom homes with 5 baths, living and buying within your means. Starter homes. That's how we save money. It's with starter homes. And somebody pointed out, you can still buy these small starter homes. Here's one in London, Ontario that costs $700,000. The issue isn't kids today wanting too much. It's that these homes literally cost 5 times what they did 20 years ago. Yeah. So here's a similar sized and aged home in the same neighborhood, sold for, you know, $163,000 in 2006. So, you know, gone up a bit since then. So another one, here's a house that sold for $269,000 in 2014, is now $630,000 in 2022. You know, if you just cook your own food. You can buy a home. Yeah, just cook your own food so that you can save up and buy one of these starter homes. Here's another one in 2005. You can see the prices. So in 2005, 257,000, and in 2022, over $1 million for a starter home. But you know what? If a home is too much for you, if you can't handle that, then you know what? You can buy a tent home. An actual tent in the middle of the woods is currently selling for more than what my parents paid for their first starter home, adjusted for inflation. $150K could get you a 3-bedroom and den, 2-bathroom, 2-story detached home with a garage and a backyard with mature trees in Oshawa in 2004. Not anymore. People like to tell you move. Other people think that too. Now you can rent a bachelor apartment. Now you can't rent a bachelor apartment here on minimum wage, but here's a tent for $150,000 off of Highway 7. 0 bedrooms, bathrooms not available. And suppose if you count the trees around you, you could have lots and lots of bathrooms. Estimated mortgage, $886 monthly. Price per square foot, $746. Yeah. And then somebody's saying, I live 10 minutes down the road from that site. It's almost alongside a busy rural highway. A ton of Ontarians and some BC people have bought crap like this as an investment properties, disgusting poverty up and down the shore, and all people see is an investment. Yeah. That seems secure, can definitely handle the elements and the climate change that we're undergoing. Buy a tent. And until there's too many together, and then they're an encampment, and that's when, the city will come in and destroy them. Just to give you another indication here of, it's not just home ownership going up, it's rental prices. Top 10 most expensive places to rent in Canada for December. So we have a good showing from BC. They're the top 2 locations, and then the rest is Ontario. For a 1-bedroom in Vancouver, it is almost $3,000. That's a month. For a 1-bedroom. Keep in mind, people, that if you're living off of disability benefits, that's more than double the total amount people get when they have to rely on disability payments. But you can see Ontario is absolutely disgusting. Like, where do you move? Where? To find somewhere cheaper. You have to move so far away from your community, from resources, from a city, from everything you know, just to maybe find a room you can afford to rent. Like, like, even the green that they have on here of just, over 1,100 scattered in the middle of nowhere, like that far up in Alberta, like this map doesn't give you a good understanding of what that is, but my guess is the 31 is Edmonton, and the 33 would be a lot more north of Edmonton. Like, it's in the middle of freaking nowhere. Yeah, like, I suppose if I move up to Thunder Bay, my rent might be cheaper. But it's Thunder Bay. Just, what are we supposed to do? They keep on telling us to budget, but you can't budget when you don't have enough money to cover the basics to survive. It doesn't matter how much you work. Minimum wage, you can't afford to live anymore. Like, unless you're grandfathered into, a rental contract like I am, there's nowhere for you to go. None. And it's home ownership, it's renting, it's buying food, it's everything is going up. And yet, your salary, if you're lucky enough to even have a salary, what is it, like 3% a year or something like that? If you're lucky? If you're lucky? How does that come close to covering the cost of everything else that goes up? Like, I'm on Ontario disability and my rent goes up every year. Do you think my disability check goes up even enough to cover that? Let alone the increase in groceries? And I'm fortunate enough to have a car, which you kind of need to in, Canadian cities in order to be able to get around. The increase in insurance, the increase in gas, increase in food costs. My disability benefits doesn't increase to cover that. And so then what am I supposed to do? You're constantly cutting back less, and it's like, okay, so I'm down to 2 meals a day, so let's just make it 1 meal a day. Like, how are you supposed to get by? I know people who skip meals daily, where they go a day or two without being able to eat because they can't afford it. And it's trips between the food banks that they have to rely on. It's horrible. And the government can fix this. This is a fixable problem. They're choosing not to. And so when the time comes, we have no other choice but to eat them. All the people in government, all the 1%ers, all the CEOs. I'm pretty sure that we can, divvy them up and spread the wealth. Checking the sandbox. Aw, my dog's a goth proposing to someone, are you? Yeah, just joking around. The person's not single. Nah, I'm polyamorous, so, it's always an option. Even though I am single. Chronically so. Yes, I'm polyamorous and single. That happens. I don't need to be in a relationship, in a polyamorous relationship, in order to know I'm polyamorous. Although some people would like to try to argue that. Brenda Null, don't forget that the packages are getting smaller too. Yeah, food price, the packaging, what you get at a fast food restaurant, even, like, everything just keeps on getting smaller and smaller, portion-wise. I remember a commercial from a long time ago, back when we were starting to go down this neoliberal path. And it really said something about the culture at that time. And the commercial was about being innovative in the corporate world or whatever. And it was how somebody suggested that the jar of olives that they sell, and they always sell 100 olives in that jar. And then somebody suggested, well, why don't we just sell 99 olives? Take 1 olive out of each jar. And then that saved the company money, and that person was celebrated. And I forget what the commercial was even really for, but it just goes to show that it's like, yes, we're going to make much more money by increasing the price in a way that people won't notice necessarily. I will admit, though, I do make good omelets because I have this nice little trick that I do with omelets, just looking at some of the comments, thinking about cooking. When I make an omelet, what I do is I shred up some cheese and put that on the frying pan first and let that get all gooey and kind of crispy, and then I pour the eggs over it, so then you have like a crispy cheese layer on your omelet, which makes it really yummy. Yeah, so I can make like 4 different meals. The problem is that it's not much in the way of variety for me. And something I've been craving for a couple years now is a proper turkey dinner. Because I haven't gotten that for the past couple years. Because sometimes I'd go over to friends' places and they would help put it together and stuff of that sort. But, you know, around Thanksgiving and Christmas, I really love, you know, proper turkey dinner with the stuffing and mashed potatoes and all that sort of stuff. And white meat. I prefer the white meat. I prefer it a little bit dry too. I'm weird like that. You know, overcooked meat, that's my preference. It's an autistic thing for me, I guess. But gravy to then moisten that dry meat. Then cranberry sauce, like just a traditional turkey dinner. It's something I've been craving for literally years at this point. I'm trying to get off of here on time for letter hack stuff, but I still have the Dave Chappelle stuff to go over. And then I wanted to go over the good news. There's good news to go over. But I have to go over the Dave Chappelle stuff because that was in the title card and it's in the title. Just checking. I like to just check the sandbox in between to kind of reset myself before I get into something new. Okay, but talking about it, yeah, it's in the title card, so I need to cover it, and it's pretty bad. I don't know if I can play this. Let's just, because I don't know if it's a copyright thing. This is a clip from the latest Dave Chappelle Netflix special. And Matt here on Twitter saying, I can't believe Netflix paid him millions because of his bigotry aside. It isn't even clever. Like this is middle school bathroom stall tier transphobia. And I don't even want to play it because of how brutal the language is in it. But there is an article that I'm going to reference from Variety that actually goes over the quotes that he's saying in this this little clip here. So if you want to see it with his inflections and whatnot, you can go check it out on Twitter. Again, I'm not entirely sure I can play it just due to copyright issues. And if I'm going to get hit up and have a video demonetized, I don't want it to be because of him. So let's scooch over to this Variety article, which has some horrific quotes in it. Make it bigger for everyone. Oops. So Dave Chappelle's obsession with mocking trans people continues in new Netflix special, The Dreamer, I Love Punching Down. I was trying to think of a pun for this, like punching himself in the foot because he was punching down so far or something like that, but it's not the same. So I just, you know, he punched and broke the bottom of the barrel pretty much. It is just, if this comedy is a reflection of who he is, it says some very monstrous things about what he really wants to be. And it is such a shame because I know he's done good, but it's not just the transphobia. He's also been an advocate against affordable housing and stuff if it affects his neighborhoods. So this is a Variety article. Maybe it's time for Dave Chappelle to try some new material. The comedian's newest special, The Dreamer, debuted on Netflix on December 31st and largely focuses on his early years in entertainment and how he manifests his success. but he floods the first 12 minutes of the set, revisiting his favorite target in recent years, transgender people. Chappelle opens the special by telling a story about visiting Jim Carrey while he was shooting on the 1999 film Man on the Moon, where the actor famously went method on set while portraying comedian Andy Kaufman. Dave recalls being very disappointed that he spent the day speaking to Carrey pretending to be Kaufman, ending by saying, "That's how trans people make me feel." He then addresses the controversy surrounding his anti-trans material, saying, "If you guys came here to the show tonight thinking that I'm going to make fun of those people again, you've come to thinking tonight thinking I'm going to make fun of those people again, you've come to the wrong show. I'm not fucking with those people anymore. It wasn't worth the trouble. I ain't saying shit about them. Maybe 3 or 4 times tonight, but that's it. I'm tired of talking about them. And you want to know why I'm tired about talking about them? Because these people act like I need them to be funny." Actually, when you talk about trans people, you are objectively not funny. Not funny. I have a video that I did about Dave Chappelle not too long ago in some of his comedy. And you know what? I like to think I was funnier than him in that video. You should go check it out. It's on my channel. Well, that's ridiculous. I don't need you. I got a whole new angle coming. You guys will never see this shit coming, and I ain't doing trans jokes no more. They were never jokes to begin with. They were just insults and transphobia wrapped up as you're a snowflake if you're not laughing at it. He then said he was going to transition to joking about handicapped people instead because they're not as organized as the gays. And I love punching down. Yeah. You know, when people say you're not funny, it's because you're not funny. You're just being a bully. You're just being mean. And there's a word in my head to describe this, what he's doing. It gets worse. It gets a lot worse. A few minutes later, Chappelle revisits the topic saying, "To be honest with you," because of course, it's not that, you know, he can stop whenever he wants to joking about trans people. It's just he doesn't want to right now. It's not that, you know, they want the attention. It's just, you know, he just wants to joke about them. That's all it is. Like he keeps on saying, "Well, they keep on coming after me. However, I keep on talking about them." It's part of the problem. A few minutes later, yeah. "So I've been trying to repair my relationship with transgender community because I don't want them to think I don't like them." You don't. You really, you don't like them. "You know how I've been repairing it? I wrote a play. I did, because I know that gays love plays." Not all of them. No, not all of them. Blanket statement's never a good idea. "It's a very sad play, but it's moving. It's about a Black transgender woman whose pronoun is sadly the N-word. Only he wouldn't be censoring himself with that. It's a real tearjerker. At the end of the play, she dies of loneliness because white liberals don't know how to speak to her. It's sad." So his comedy bit was talking about a theoretical theater bit. And this next part is particularly egregious for so many reasons. Later he quipped, "God forbid I ever go to jail, but if I do, I hope it's in California. Soon as the judge sentences me, I'll be like, before you sentence me, I want the court to know I identify as a woman. Send me to a women's jail. As soon as I get there, you know what I'm be doing? Give me your fruit cocktail, bitch, before I knock your motherfucking teeth out. I'm a girl just like you, bitch. Come here and Don't make me explain myself. I'm a girl. Okay, let's just step away from that for a second there. So he's saying the first thing he would do if he ever got sent to prison was to say that he's a woman so that he can rape so that he can rape women. And he thinks that's a funny joke. Like, for one thing, when transgender women go to a women's prison, they are still harassed and bullied and abused and attacked by the guards and other prisoners. However, if they don't go to a women's prison and they're forced to go to a men's prison, it's much, much worse what happens to them there. And he's using it as a joke. All this horrible stuff. And he's claiming that this is something he would like to do. Oh, but he's joking. He's joking. He wouldn't really sexually assault people. No, it's a joke. You should be laughing. Because it's not like people live this every day. It's not like this isn't happening in prisons regularly. This is meant to be funny. And then he wonders why people are upset with his comedy. There's nothing to joke about there. These are real issues, real people attached to these issues. And he's upset because people have stopped finding him funny. And so he's becoming even more egregious, more vitriolic. It's almost like he's offended people don't find him funny anymore. And he's lashing out at everyone he can, claiming people have tried to cancel him. How has he been canceled when he has yet another special on Netflix? And you know what? Netflix knew. They knew what he was going. They approved this. They approved this garbage. All the trans women I know have been attacked, have been assaulted, have been harassed. All the trans men I know, same thing. Everyone from the LGBTQ plus community I know has been, abandoned, harassed, assaulted, everything. Constantly under threat. But he's the victim because people don't think he's funny anymore. And it's just so sad because at one point he did use his platform to raise awareness around certain issues. And he has that ability to do it now. He could raise awareness. He could, make people's lives better. But do you think this helps anyone? Do you think any trans person would feel safe going to a special of his when he's riling up the audience like that? He hasn't been canceled, but I think, yeah, he should be. He should be. There's no reason why that garbage should be allowed. If he wants to go to a club and have some club, whatever, freedom of speech, whatever. Although I'm not a believer in absolute freedom of speech. And I actually think a lot of this borderline hate speech, that it promotes hatred. It promotes violence towards vulnerable groups. Yet he gets paid millions of dollars to say it. Later in the special, Chappelle addresses when he was attacked on stage at the Hollywood Bowl in 2022 by an assailant with a replica gun that could discharge a knife blade. Chappelle recalled trying to diffuse the tension after the incident with a joke, telling the audience it was a trans man. But he said it didn't go over well, given the audience's response of "Boo, it's LA. We like trans people." Chappelle also said the attacker had a knife that identified as a gun. And I triggered them because I had done LGBTQ jokes, and it turns out this fellow was a B. He also joked knowing the attacker was bisexual. He could have been raped. You know, just because somebody is bisexual or gay does not mean that they're going to assault people. In fact, statistically, it's not, they're less likely than straight cis men. Statistically speaking. Shot at the Lincoln Theater in Chappelle's native Washington, D.C., The Dreamer is the comedian's 7th stand-up special exclusive to Netflix. Chappelle has been under fire over recent years for frequent comments regarding the transgender community, including his 2021 Netflix special, The Closer. The controversial material incited Netflix employees walkout and protest in solidarity with the LGBTQ+ community, while Netflix TED initially defended the comedian and his right to artistic freedom in a memo distributed among Netflix employees. He later said he screwed up in his reaction to the controversy. A picture of Ted and Chappelle smiling together is shown during the credits of The Dreamer. Yeah, so apparently that lesson wasn't learned. That walkout only had a temporary effect because, you know, their profits bounced back, so, you know, move on to the next thing. It is just disgusting that this is allowed to happen. And there's different strains of the same thing going on with a well-known figure to this channel, Tim Pool. Tweeted this out. So Tim Pool says women only identify as LGBTQ because they hang out with low-T feminist males and would immediately become straight if they met a ripped Chad bro.
So I'm imagining this. I'm wondering, I should say, if this young woman, I mean, she looks like she's in her 20s, has only ever been around sneaky fucker types, male feminists, low T, weak men lacking passion and ambition.
Because according to Tim, the only type of men that would say that they're feminists and want to support women and stuff like that are men that are the sneaky fucker types, which means they're trying to be the good friend. They're trying to get on the nice side because all they want to do is have sex by being the nice guy. That's their only interest. That's their only interest, is to manipulate women into sex by being the nice guy in the club.
Men who don't get up, don't exercise, don't improve themselves. And she thought, this is what men are.
Also, he's not married and doesn't have a family and is trying to tell men what they should be doing with their lives.
Interesting. Perhaps one of the big reasons that many women are claiming to be LGBTQ is because they're not feeling strong attraction to males because they're not actually encountering real masculinity for which they would be attracted to. And
no, they're not attracted to males because they're not attracted to males, or they're attracted to different traits that aren't defined by gender. I know a lot of women tend to be attracted to me because of my more masculine traits combined with my feminine traits. Because I get hit on by a lot more women than I do men. That's totally cool and fun and good. People are attracted to all sorts of different people. Like, here's the thing. I don't want an alpha male. I actually like men that are submissive. A little bit of information about me there. I like that in a man.
And if you're only surrounded by a bunch of whiny, low-T feminist males who are weak and out of shape and just go we should be...
Tim isn't exactly the stature of being in shape. Like, I've seen him standing up and stuff. He's not in shape himself. And he's so fucking self-conscious about his own appearance that he can't get that stupid beanie off his head. Remember, all of his beanies lined with tinfoil.
Egalitarian and split the bill. And then many of these women are just like, wow, I mean, I'm equally attracted to both, I suppose. But then they meet a big ripped Chad bro who's like, I'll pay the bill, throws the card down, and she's like, whoo, swoon. Perhaps.
Yes, because all women can be bought. Yep. As soon as a big Chad bro comes down with a wallet, whoo, you stole my little heart. It doesn't work like that. And basically, as the serfs point out, so it's the lesbian is only a good dick away from being straight with newer slang. Yeah. That's what Tim is saying, that, you know, she just needs to be fucked right and she'll be straight. And that has led to the rape of lesbians so many times over. Like, I don't know if Tim Pool has the intelligence needed to even understand what he's saying. He's just putting it into a context for his like 12-year-old audience, like 12-year-old boys that he's preaching to. But it's just, again, the misogyny involved with this idea that all women are attracted or should be attracted to just one type of man. And that if men don't fit neatly in this box, then there's something wrong with them. And if women don't like what's in that box, then there's something wrong with them. Like, he's projecting, he's just upset that he's not as attractive as he feels he should be. That the women aren't just swooning over him all the time. Even though I'm pretty sure there are enough of those shallow women out there that if Tim were to throw his wallet down in front of them, they'd be like, okay. Like, I don't think he's hurting for opportunities per se. But just this idea of like, ooh, here's an alpha man with a wallet, I'm done. Yeah, no, I don't care. When it comes to finances and men, the only thing I care about is, do they have things together? You know, they don't need to be rich. Just, if they're in debt, what's their plan? You know, that's it. If it's a temporary situation, if it's not, you know, basically I want them to be at the same place I am or better. That's it. You know, I don't care how wealthy he is. I don't care how alpha he is. I care about how he treats me. You know? If he makes me laugh. All that sort of stuff. It's just the irony of Tim trying to give advice on what women should want and what men should be, when he has no fucking clue himself and is too self-conscious to even acknowledge his own demons. See, I know where I'm self-conscious and I admit it and I deal with it and I'm working on it, but him? Nowhere even close to that. And then we almost had some good news. So the Ohio governor was vetoing some, I believe it's anti-trans legislation. So the governor, the Republican governor, I believe, was, you know, doing the right thing. and vetoing it, but Aaron Reed said it would appear that Ohio is heading for a veto override. The vote tally is not 100% certain. However, after vetoing the bill, Ramaswamy, Trump, and DeSantis put significant pressure on the legislators in the state. Remember to call your representatives. So it's not done yet, but even though the governor vetoed the anti-trans legislation, they're still putting pressure on the House there to override his veto, because of course you can't have anything nice. And similar along that, we almost had something good. Libs at TikTok doesn't have standards, so Facebook suspends Libs at TikTok for violating standards, and the Serfs tweeted this out. Half of Chaya's bit is calling gay people pedophiles for existing or spreading debunked lies. And yeah, we all know the horror she is, and that would be good news that Facebook suspends the Libs at TikTok for violating standards, because that's exactly what they do, and there should be accountability. Except Facebook suspends, then restores Libs at TikTok. Facebook suspended the right-wing Libs at TikTok account for violating community standards, then restored it after Chaya Raichik appealed. Which, to her, is just a big old win. That people are caving to her pressure all the time. Free speech and all that sort of stuff. They have the freedom to harass and target marginalized groups of people. Oh, God, they're kidding on my lap. Just, yeah. But why don't we actually start getting into like the good news that I promised everyone? Because I think after these past few little bits, we need it. So let's take a breather. We'll get into the good news, but take a little bit of a breather. So first, here. I love that he's getting into this habit of when I'm holding him like this, he'll sometimes then just like rest his little head, get the necklace out of your teeth, on my neck and shoulders and stuff. And it's just the sweetest thing. Let's see, what's happening in the sandbox? Lefty, I remember when he was funny. Yeah. Christy said, I have Netflix, didn't see this on there. It could be a country thing. I don't know if you're Canadian, then it might only be available on American Netflix. Autumn Leaves, good news for Irish people. Frank Kitson is unalive. Congratulations, I have no idea who that is. Many doctors denigrating the trans community for profit. Yeah. So Life, I don't think Americans know who that is, Autumn. Yeah, we don't. Well, I don't, and I'm Canadian. I don't know who you're talking about. Yeah, Chrissy said, whoa, what happened with, I don't know the reference, what fruit cocktail is. I don't want to Google that, and I won't. Yeah, that is, people a little bit shocked about what he said there. Shamigli, amazing theory, Timbu. Yeah. So like the PBD podcast was losing their minds over Canada putting tampons in men's rooms. Since it's a right-wing show, I trolled just let people bleed everywhere and stop controlling us. I did a bit of a segment about that for some good news, actually. I covered that. Yeah, because you know what happens to tampons in men's restrooms when there's no trans men that need them, or non-binary folks that need them. You know what happens? They just sit there. They don't harm anyone. They don't suddenly, shoot up an asshole as soon as it becomes exposed. That's not how tampons work. They don't seek out holes. You have to actually place them there. So if they're just sitting on the counter, they remain just sitting on a counter. There's no remote control tampons yet. No automatic flying tampons. My dog's a goth. Does he think gay men just haven't met the right woman? Well, he doesn't talk much about gay men because misogyny, he likes to focus his attention on women and how women should be behaving. Oh, and that men should be alphas. And if you're an alpha man, then that just means you can't be gay. Yes, let's get into some good news, shall we? And this is all good news around queer issues. Boom! Remember Kim Davis, the former county clerk who refused to issue marriage license in Kentucky to same-sex couples? Well, a federal judge just ruled she must pay a total of over $260,000 in fees and expenses to attorneys who represents one couple who sued her. That's in addition to the $100,000 in damages a jury said David must pay. Yes, ex-Kentucky official Kim Davis, who denied same-sex marriage license, owes over $360,000. Hell yeah. Be broke for the rest of your life, you ignorant bitch. The former Kentucky county clerk, who in 2015 denied to issue marriage license to same-sex couples, must pay $260,000 in fees and expenses to the couple's attorney, in addition to the $100,000 in damages awarded by a jury last year, federal judge ruled. Kim Davis, ex-clerk of Rowan County in northeastern Kentucky, became a national figure in 2015 when she defied the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that legalized same-sex marriage. Davis refused to sign marriage licenses to same-sex couples, citing her religious beliefs. At the time, U.S. District Judge David Bunning found her in contempt of court and ordered her to jail, and she spent 5 days behind bars. So I think a lot of you might remember this little story that happened and the back and forth that happened. But it's nice to see that she literally has to pay. Literally. So David Ermolt and David Moore sued Davis, David v. Davis, after being denied marriage licenses multiple times by her or her office in 2022. Bunning ruled Davis violated their constitutional rights, and in September 2023, a jury awarded the couple $100,000 in damages. Last week, Bunning ruled in favor of the couple on the question of whether Davis should pay the attorney's fees. Of course she should. Having obtained summary judgment on liability and a jury awarded the damage, plaintiffs are unquestionably the prevailing party and entitled to an award of the attorney's fees and expenses. Bunning, who was nominated to the court by former President George W. Bush, wrote in his order. Ooh, so a Republican judge did this. Nice. Attorneys for Davis had argued that the plaintiff's attorney's bills hours were excessive, but Bunning ruled the hours expanded and the rates charged to be reasonable. Yeah, they were reasonable attorney fees. Davis was represented by lawyers with Liberty Counsel, a nonprofit that says it advances religious liberty and the sanctity of human life and the family through litigation. This latest judgment now allows Liberty Counsel to ask the court to reverse the jury's verdict against Davis because there is insufficient evidence to award the plaintiffs monetary damage. The organization said in a statement, if the motion is denied, Liberty Counsel will appeal the case to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. Davis lost her re-election bid for county clerk in 2018. So she lost her bid to be a county clerk, and she lost a whole lot of money. Of course, it's going to be appealed, but let's just take the win. Let's take this win. Taking this win. Pay up, bitch. And here's a nice thing here. It starts off horrible, but it's nice. So, I'll just read this. So you see this woman here. My family didn't congratulate me on getting engaged to my girlfriend. So it starts off pretty bad, but it's actually, well, you'll see.
Don't worry about it. Everything's gonna be fine.
Hi, Shannon. Congratulations on your engagement. I am so happy for you. My name is Dan, and I'm a stand-in dad, and I've got a group called Stand In Pride where we connect members of the LGBTQ+ community with other members and allies for emotional support or to physically stand in at life events such as weddings or graduations. We've got dads like me that would be thrilled to walk you down the aisle. We've got moms that would want to be there when you say yes to the dress or whatever you choose to wear. We've got grandparents, siblings, cousins, uncles, aunts, you name it. We've got members around the world in more than 70 countries. And they've all come together for one purpose, and that is to stand in the gap, fill in that void left by unaffirming family. You are loved, my dear. Check out the links in my bio to learn more.
And so on TikTok,
Don't worry about
oops, that is,
Don't worry about it.
I'm trying to get to the end and pause it. So
Don't
you
worry
can
about it.
see.
Everything's gonna be fine.
Pause. Or actually, so that's on TikTok, the zombie Dan with underscores. Just the sweetest thing. I've heard of other things like this, but you know, to have an organization in 70 countries now, that's amazing to have so many people out there ready to support each other, because that's how we're going to get through the next bunch of years, is together, by supporting each other, by being there for each other, by literally standing in and helping each other through everything that's going to be happening. It really is, you know, if you can become part of this organization, I'd really, you know, suggest it, because there are lots of people in need of, you know, sometimes just even a friend or somebody to be there for them, to help them through these events in life where you're supposed to have family members there for you, but so often they're not. And it's so great that there's this organization out there that seems to just be growing and growing. More from Aaron Reed. This is a long thread. Let's see how quickly I can go through it, though, because again, good news. 2023 was one of the toughest years ever for trans people, but it was not without its victories, and counting those victories is important. Hope is the fuel we burn to carry on. Subscribe to my work. Yes. She has a Substack. Go check her out, and you can read the article there, but you can see the full list of victories with links to articles speaking about each individual item in the list in the story in her article, Erin in the Morning. So go check that out, but she puts it in the tweets. So with no further ado, here they are. First court victories. Iowa, don't say gay law. Book ban block. Florida, drag ban blocked. Montana, drag ban blocked. Texas, drag ban blocked. Tennessee, drag ban blocked. Montana, gender affirming care ban blocked. Court victories continued. Idaho, gender affirming care ban blocked. Chino, I don't know, American City. Valley Forest outing blocked. Ohio, trans access to bathrooms upheld. Natalie Ryan wins right to play disc golf. No right to misgender trans students in the 7th Circuit. Court victories, even more. Supreme Court allows trans students to play sports in West Virginia. Texas book ban blocked. Seventh Circuit ruling on bathrooms. Arkansas trans ban blocked in court. Indiana gender trans care ban blocked. Adult care restrictions blocked in Missouri. Even more. Montana pride ban blocked in court. Borough pride allowed to go on. DA blocked from changing organization of Blount County pride. Idaho bathroom ban blocked. Legislative policies victories. DeWin vetoes gender-affirming care ban in Ohio. Anti-trans provisions removed from NDAA. 15 states pass shield laws protecting trans cares. Arkansas bathroom ban blocked. West Virginia trans ban exception added. More legislative victories. Michigan Equality Act law. Wyoming gender-affirming care ban defeated. South Dakota drag ban defeated. Drag ban gutted in Arkansas. Murfreesboro homosexuality ordinance overturned. More legislative victories. Kansas gender-affirming care ban veto. Wisconsin anti-trans bills vetoed. Maryland Trans Health Equality Act passed. Kids Online Safety Act that could target LGBTQ plus content tabled. Oregon passes coverage for all trans health care. Hell yeah. Legislative policies victories continued even more. Washington bill protecting trans one-way passes. Francis Howell School ditches stop trans bathroom bill. Largest school district in Vermont codifies trans rights for students. School boards rejects Youngkin's anti-trans policies. Election victories. London County School Board, Central Bucks School Board, Linn-Mar School District in Iowa, Fairfax County School Board, Andy Bashir, Judge Janet Ohio abortion amended. Scalia's daughter loses our Bamel County School Board election. More election victories. Virginia House and Senate. Danica Rome elected to the Senate and first trans woman senator in VA. Olivia Hill becomes Tennessee's first trans elected officials. Moms for Liberty suffers massive nationwide defeat in elections. California schools district successfully launches recall of anti-trans school board member. Judge Daniel McAfee in PA. 12 of 13 M4L candidates lose in Iowa. That's Moms for Liberty. They lose. Pella, Iowa book ban fails. Studies and polls. There's a lot of good news here. There we go. 76% say trans care should be decided by patients, doctors, not politicians. RTC shows lower suicidality. 21 state AG's reports show no bathroom incidents. Swedish study shows no social contagion. Wave of detransitioners fails to materialize. 84% oppose book ban. 66 oppose don't say gay laws. Louisiana report shows trans care safe and effective despite Republicans commissioning it. Fox News polls said 86% viewers attack on trans kids a problem. NPR PBS polls show majority opposing criminalization. 71% of Kentuckians oppose gender-affirming care ban. Study in pediatrics show blockers reduce suicidality. JAMA study shows top surgery regret is almost zero. International victories. Sweeping pro-trans law in Spain, making gender changes easier. Japan makes it easier to change gender markers. Japan ruling against workplace harassment and forced haircuts. Forced haircuts? Biggest Trans Day of Visibility marches ever. Kim Petrillas becomes first openly trans Grammy winner. Trans boy allowed to star in Oklahoma play. Pro-trans rallies outnumber anti-trans ones in Canada. Hell yeah. Canada. Yoshi Gilius becomes first trans woman international masters in chess. Trans kid wins Irish dancing competition. Rep Zoe Sepher, her fiance, wins times 100 next and gains an international voice. Hope is hard to hold in time when trans rights are mode and under attack now than ever, but fight was never going to be easy. In the seeds planted with victories like these, this generational fight will one day protect future trans people for generations to come. Until then, I will be here to report on every major moment in this fight. Yes, please subscribe to her work if you can. Just amazing, amazing stuff. So we're constantly hearing about the negative stories in the news all the time because that's what gets the clicks. And sometimes we only hear about these positive stories in passing, but then the next tragedy of the day take hold. And it's important to remember we are winning. You know, as I say, progressive change is always possible. It may become more difficult, but it's always possible. And we are winning. It's a lot of hard work. A lot more hard work will be involved, but we will get there. We will get there. How about a little bit more fun news? Did you know in Canada we're a little bit crazy when it comes to winter? This is a thing. This is an actual thing.
Today, hundreds of people from across southern Ontario gathered in Oakville today to kick off the new year with a polar bear plunge. And it was all for a good cause. Hadi Azad has the story.
3, 2, 1,
let's.
The 39th annual Courage Polar Bear Dip for World.
Okay, so it's not as impressive right now, you know, climate change and all, but they were still doing this when it was like -10, -15, like risking hypothermia to jump into a freezing cold lake.
Vision returned to Coronation Park in Oakville with a splash.
Oh, music. Skip past music.
Well, it all started when the...
It didn't start with you. But it's a lot of fun. People dressing up in costumes. They're doing this for a good cause, having fun. This guy has been doing it for a bunch of years. It's super silly fun to just, you know, a big group event of stripping down to your bathing suit and jumping in a freezing cold lake in winter. Yeah, so hundreds of people across Canada shrieked, shivered, and smiled their way into a New Year Monday as they took part in a long-standing tradition of January 1st polar bear dips. Canadians have been marking New Year's Day with plunges in lakes and oceans and rivers made frigid by typical January conditions since at least 1920. And scheduled events in cities spanning Halifax to Vancouver were poised to maintain the ritual. Yeah, we do that. Yeah, it's now part of, in order to become a Canadian citizen, you have to jump into a freezing cold body of water on January 1st. That's now a requirement to be a real Canadian. I haven't done it yet, so I'm working on it. Does it count when I lose heating in my building? Just super silly fun. Let's go to this. There, just super silly fun. Jumping into freezing cold water in January. It wasn't so bad now because it was still like around 0 degrees. Like it was only around freezing when they did this. Oh, I just, yeah, that's my face right there. Because you know when you're getting into like a pool or something and there's like those certain parts of the body you hit that is just so much worse, like, you know, your armpit area and stuff like that, and you try to get down, or your waist, and and it's like painfully cold. Yeah, there's my expression in a nutshell right there. Just super silly fun. Oh, okay, back to the main shot. Okay, so said we would end that with some good news, and we ended up with some good news. So life, I may have trolled make periods great again too, maybe. Well, now we have these automatic tampons that just seek out holes anywhere, so that's why men are afraid to have them in the men's washrooms. You know, a period is a sign of a healthy womb, so you know, getting a period is a good thing. If your anatomy is the one that produces a period, then it's a good thing that you get them. It's part of the natural cycle. George McDuncan, David's is a poor excuse, a bag of flesh, but that's my opinion. I grew up with these Pentecostal mental fucks. Yeah. Using your religion for bigotry, because there's lots of like Christians and stuff like that that choose not to interpret the Bible in such a way that would, you know, validate their hate. Let's see. Trying to find things I know the context of and isn't part of a conversation going on. And I don't want to read some of the more negative, like not negative overall, but just, you know, I want to stay on a little bit more of a positive note, not mentioning, you know, what the Catholic Church is. We know it's horrible. It's horrible. My dogs are gone. Thank you for this. I really needed it. Yeah, there are good things happening that we tend to lose sight of. Looney Tunes 9000. Holy shit, that will get someone sick. The polar bear dip? Maybe. Maybe. It depends on the water you're jumping into. Yeah, like I've seen ones where you see them all wrapped up in their coats and stuff like that, and then they do the countdown, and then they just like drop the coats and they run in with the water cold enough that you actually see ice in it and stuff. But then they like run in, they go, whoa, and then they run back out and put their coats on. And that I can imagine. But to see them like out on the beach walking around in just their bathing suits, I get freezing, like 0 degrees. It's not that cold, but it's cold. It's cold. But there's a weird thing that happens in Canada. So in like November, when it's 5 degrees Celsius out, it's like freezing cold, and then it gets to like 0 and people are like, oh my god, it's so cold, it's so cold. And as I constantly remind them, you know, it's like, come the spring, this will be warm. And yeah, after the winter and we get used to the -15 and -30 sometimes even, and then all of a sudden it gets back up to 0 and 5 degrees, we're walking around without jackets on like this is balmy out right now. It all depends on, you know, what season you're coming out of. Hmm. Yes, I'm running late. I'm bumping into letter hacks time, so I will end this as people are pointing out. Yes, I'm getting these long, but there was so much I wanted to cover. Like I said, I was thinking about doing tomorrow, but tomorrow is Leftist Mafia on tomorrow, or are they taking a break with the holidays? Because I don't know if they took a break last night. Anyway, there's so much to cover. And I was worried when I started doing all these live streams that I wouldn't be able to find material, but damn, there's lots to cover. So why don't I just start wrapping this up then? Thank you everyone for coming out. It's really great to see everyone. I'm getting so close to paying off Frodo's vet bill. I have like something like $70 left needed to pay off his vet bills. So please, if you can help, I have a PayPal link in the description box below, or if you're Canadian, you can send an e-transfer to SandeeLovas@gmail.com. Every little bit helps. And that's just for his primary vet bills for the emergency. I've had to take all 3 of the babies in because the 2 babies, the young ones, got a cat cold and needed antibiotics and stuff. And Frodo's been going to the not-for-profit vet. So anything above and beyond Frodo's initial bills would also be greatly appreciated to help get that all under control. Also, I have a wish list linked in the description box below on Amazon that is just stuff to help build my studio, art supplies, stuff to make me smile. There's a wide variety of items on there that people can purchase to support my channel, to help me out. You can become, let's see, is it this one? Yeah, you can become a patron, linked in the description box below. You can find me on these social medias, but primarily this one. Pretty much this one. Only that one, really. I'm on that one. I also have art. Go check it out at SandeeLovas.com. I draw pictures of pets and people and probably other stuff. I do some painting and photography and a whole bunch of nice stuff. Frodo has been doing all right since I mentioned him. I should probably mention him. He's gone back to not really eating as much as I'm comfortable with. So he's still eating, just not enough. So tomorrow he's going to the not-for-profit vet to get some fluids and a prescription to help stimulate his appetite. So hopefully that helps, because as long as he keeps on eating, he should be fine. And the 2 babies have seemed to really... They've recovered fully from their cat virus that they had, so that's good. Yeah, and thank you again, everyone coming out. Thank you to you wonderful mods. Hoping to build a wonderful community here. I'm debating if I'll have a stream on Thursday to get caught up on all the news stuff. If not, I'll be on Friday at 6 o'clock to cover news stuff. There's just so much going on. And yes, Letter Hack is live right now, I believe. Good for Gabby. Oh, cool. I'd love to see your art. Go to the webpage. Get to see lots of my art. I have examples there. Also on my YouTube channel, go to the shorts. You can look at the art. Well, it's under the shorts. Under the playlist, there's one called Art. You can see some of my videos about my art there. And yeah, Instagram is also a good place to go to. Linked, yeah, right there. SandeeLovas, Instagram at SandeeLovas. Although I'm not posting there the way I should. And I'm hungry. I should probably eat. Luckily, I have a second sandwich because I got a breakfast sandwich today at Tim Hortons and they messed up my order. So they said I could keep the first one, or else they were just going to throw it out, and they gave me the new one. So I kept the second one because it's not exactly what I ordered, but I'll still eat it. And yeah. Hopefully one of these days we can get it up to like triple digits watching this. That would be awesome. Anyway. Salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.